Okay, so this one is about the nature of genius. Genius. I never thought I'd discuss the topic of genius. It's been a topic that I've struggled with for a lot of my life. Struggled to understand, struggled to define, struggled to pin down a meaning or an interpretation that meant something to me. And, when I was younger, I always observed all these incredible people who were accomplishing astounding things. And I used to think to myself, these people are geniuses. We've got obvious ones like, Elon Musk, who's a modern day genius. Brian Greene. I mean, so many quantum physicists are just extraordinary. And there's lots of people who have very obvious genius. I used to look up to these people. I even used to see people like Roger Federer, tennis players, and admire them because of their genius in their field. And, I often think to myself, why is it that I admire Roger Federer, but not another tennis player, for example, who has, similar results? Why is it Roger Federer that I admire instead of the others? And, as I've grown older and more mature, I've begun to realize that it's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. But like me, most of us have been spending the majority of our lives trying to keep it hidden from everyone. We're trying to keep our light dim, because the reality is, and what I've come to know about my genius, because we all have genius, all of us, is that it's the part of me that makes me unlike any other person that there is. And, if I was to dissect, not physically, but Roger Federer, what is it about the nature of the way he plays tennis that I identify as genius? And I've done this, actually. It's his elegance. It's the way that he moves, in that his positive and negative movement is symbiotic, seamless. He doesn't stomp around, he glides, because for whatever reason, the negative movement of his body it's like the yin and the yang of the positive and the negative. They're moving symbiotically. It's not just the power, pushing movements. It's the backwards and the bending and the, pulling movements are all in perfect harmony. And so when he hits the ball, his timing is impeccable. He doesn't play with brute force like a lot of the other guys, which is fine. But he moves as a whole rather than builds up to, an explosive moment. And so his timing is just unreal. And that's his genius. There are other aspects of him that are incredible as well. But if you actually looked at another tennis player who has similar results to Roger, you can easily dissect him and recognize his genius as well. But the other thing I've also come to know is that the genius in others that we admire the most is the unrecognized genius within ourselves. And I would say it's the untapped, it's the latent potential within us, yet unrealized. We see it in others. That's why we're in awe of it. Oh my God. Wow. This guy, incredible. And I can recognize it in Roger because I recognize that movement in everyone. I recognize it in nature. I recognize it in myself. Even things down to when I dance. In fact, my focus is on the negative movement rather than the positive. And it makes me my natural way of wanting to move my body when I dance is very unusual because of it. But I can't. My nature arises with the negative movement being what's accented rather than the positive movement. I'm always considering the backwards motion. It's always at the front of my mind. I'm always considering the positive movement enabling the backwards movement. And I don't know why, it just is that way. And so when I see someone else moving like this, who has the positive and negative movements in balance, not balance, but harmony, because they're not always equal, but always harmonious and symbiotic, enhancing each enhancing the other. They're not trying to fight each other to be equal. And it's the same with the quantum physicists that I admire, who I can recognize their genius. And it's not because of the way they do maths. How good are they at doing a regression analysis in their mind, or how good are they at, doing maths? It's not that I admire. It's the question they've had to formulate and ask in order to even begin attempting to answer it. That's what I admire, is the vision. It's the belief in what may be possible. And it's this beautiful blending of vision and reality, where they're allowing themselves to conceive of a vision that's entirely plausible based on the way the lens they perceive the universe through now. And they're hypothesizing the most logical reason for, the hypothesis. See, I don't even know what a hypothesis means. It's just a word I've heard really smart people using. And so I just borrowed it, but I'm a stickler for words. I I don't feel authentic if I don't understand the meaning of a word that I'm using. I'm a real stickler for understanding the meaning of words, because I always want to convey a feeling. I want a word to carry a feeling that's arising within me. I don't want it to just be wooden. I don't want it to feel like an attempt to say something. I want to just say something that means something. And so I won't use hypothesize because I don't understand it. But I can see how I can understand their process. I can see the questions they're asking because of how they're seeking to answer them. I can see how they've come to their vision, based on what I've come to know and understand, based on what I can see in my vision. I can understand how they're drawing their conclusions. And so the genius I can see in them, I can see it in myself. But I'm never allowed to be shown. Never. Only on this podcast. And, the truth is that the only thing that separates, the only thing that's really different between myself and an actual scientist, there's lots of things. I don't want to say the only thing, but the point I'm making is that they receive a vision. They can see a vision. They turn it into whatever that word is, for a theory, a plausible theory. And then they try to prove it. They try to prove it so that they can convince people of authority that this is the accepted truth, the accepted truth. But what quantum physicists are struggling with now is that they're beginning to realize that there is no the truth. There is only truth as perceived through the eyes of the beholder. And they know this. Nonetheless, in academia, it's very structured. It's authority based, and your personal authority is based upon how many of your peers endorse you, really. That's what it comes down to. And it all comes down to the argument. You have to convince them. And that's where I differ. That's where that world, I don't fit into that world, because I trust my vision. I trust my vision. There's not an ounce of mistrust that I have about what I see and the interpretation that I have. And the reason for that is because my interpretation is mine. I'm not trying to convince anyone else of my truth. All I know is what my truth is. And in this moment, my truth is this. And I share it on this podcast. This is what I believe. This is why I believe it. What you choose to believe is none of my business. You may have a million reasons why your truth is entirely different to mine. And this is what has to be accepted in this universe, that both are valid. Neither of us are wrong. Neither of us are right. And we're both right. This universe is a paradox. Now, this isn't to say that there's not a place for, providing evidence to convince certain people. We've got to remain grounded, but I'm only talking about our own personal truth in the context of seeking someone else's validation of what we believe to be true. We're the only ones that ever need to do that. If we've got doubt, then we explore that doubt. We negate that doubt through our own exploration. We don't need to run experiments. We just, when the truth is revealed, we just accept it. Yep, this is true to me now. This is what I now know. And you know that you're right because the doubt's gone. And that's all that matters, is that you're convinced, that we're convinced. And so to bring this back onto the topic of the nature of genius, we are all genius, all of us. All of us have genius, and it's hidden. And if you want to unlock yours and tap into it, into yours, look around your life and observe all of the people that you admire. And if you want to get a breakdown of your genius, your untapped genius, do what I did with Roger Federer, is break down what it is that you find that is genius about that person. You could do a comparison in the same way that I did, where, I looked at Roger Federer versus another, I won't use names, versus another really high-level tennis player who's potentially got even better results than Roger. But I can only recognize the genius in Roger rather than someone else. See if you can do that. Just hover over all of the people as the observer self that you admire the most in the world, and then see if you can pull out what it is you admire the most and why. And if you have some kind of list at the end of it, you are staring at your latent genius, your untapped potential. And so that's exciting. It's fun. But yours will be different because it's our uniqueness that is what our genius actually is. It's the uniqueness of our unique expression, actually. Not only is that where our genius lies, but that's where the capability of all human beings as one thing, as one super organism. If you were to look at every human being as a cell within a greater body, and that body is humanity, it's our uniqueness that is the key that unlocks the capacity for the entire body to thrive, the entire body of humanity to thrive. And so what is the uniqueness of each cell? How can we, first of all, identify the uniqueness within every human being a cell within that body? How can we identify it first? Then how can we unlock it? And then how can we allow it to be expressed? Now, this is going to, where this subject goes now, the topic where it goes now will surprise you. I end up saying that in every podcast, but it's true. So I'll tell you a story to give you some context. I went to a Catholic school. It's the same Catholic school. This is high school in New Zealand. So, from the age of, 13 till about 17, something like that. 5 years from the age of 13 to 17. And my family's Catholic. My mum's mum, Irish Catholic, strongly Catholic. And my dad, Catholic boys' school, Catholic, but we're what you would call non-practicing. So, we didn't go to mass every Sunday, but my family liked to go to, on Easter or Christmas and things like that. And I hated it. I just couldn't stand it. I was a kid in a school where they were teaching you to pray to an imaginary man in the sky. And, talking about doing these rituals and, if you do this ritual, then you can have, a cracker and a sip of wine. I had no clue what was going on. It just made no sense. Why would you? I don't need to ask the permission of an imaginary person to have a cracker and a sip of grape juice. What? It just made no sense to me. And I was extremely irritated at the inconvenience of the pandering. I never felt, I felt the presence of a power and an energy within my body that it never felt separate to me. Not my whole life did it ever feel separate. And so people would talk about, pray to God and, surrender to a higher power and all these things. And I used to think, I just didn't get it. I couldn't relate to it. Didn't resonate for me. I would, I'd question myself. I'd think, oh man, I had obviously people close to me who were quite religious and into Christianity, and I'd go away on weekends and, they have lots of sports kind of activities, and I go away on weekends and they try and convert you and get you into the church, and I'd kind of go along with it, but just never felt it. I always experienced what they were experiencing as something outside of them. I always experienced that power. Yes, it was palpable. Yes, it was there. But what they seemed to be calling, what they seem to call God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit and all these things, I just experienced that as me. And so I couldn't buy into that whole thing of praying to an authority that's higher, giving your power away to another authority that you can't even see. And so, it would be at the point where, in Catholicism, you're not supposed to, go up the front to have the cracker and the wine unless you've had your first Holy Communion. And your first Holy Communion is a ritual that I don't understand. It's just called a Holy Communion. If I was to ask any of my relatives First Holy Communion actually means, they wouldn't be able to tell me. It's tradition more than anything. But for some reason, if you're born into a family that somehow you inherit being Catholic just because your parents were Catholic and their parents were Catholic, even if you don't go to church, you're still Catholic somehow through blood. And that's just crazy to me. So I never really bought into it. My family understand it. They know it. I'd be asked to be a godparent or, say something at a christening, and I just wouldn't. It didn't feel right to me. But the issue with organized religion, and this isn't me criticizing it, it is what it is. But we have to understand that we have this entire, it's massive. It is absolutely massive, the Catholic Church, the organization of the Catholic Church. And it's utterly thriving. They're everywhere. Churches are everywhere. There's money to fund them. They've got the best audio equipment and the best video cameras, and, they're commercializing religion left, right, and center. And, and there's a culture around evangelism, and it's epic. It's utterly successful as a business model and how to make something go viral. It's a masterpiece. But nonetheless, you have to look at what's holding it together, and that is a fear of God. It is an utter fear of God and guilt for being sinful. Drives the whole thing. Most people are going to church to negate their shame, to negate their guilt. They're asking for forgiveness. Like something else like some other power decides whether you feel guilty or not. It's so, it's horrendous. And Catholics are terrified of God, terrified of the wrath of God. I remember when, growing up, my mum used to say this thing. If I thought she was lying, she'd say, "God strike me dead if I'm lying." And then I would definitely know she definitely wasn't lying, because there's no way she would say that if she was actually lying. God strike me dead. It's like, and you feel the fear in that, in those words, and I would just never question it after that. She said God strike her dead if she's lying. She's definitely not lying. And, this fear that God can strike you dead. Wow. Just wow. So I've painted the picture now. This is the backstory. But what we actually have here is we have all of these people walking around the earth, living their day-to-day lives, with generational assumptions and beliefs and perspectives literally imbued in their DNA, holding intense fear of God, intense fear of God. So why is that such a big issue? It's because the part of you that is genius, the part of you that is unique, your uniqueness, the part of you that is, it's your genius, is the part of you that everyone shares. It's the part of you that everyone shares. And it's the part of, I've spoken about this in other podcasts, that you're one thing and it's like we are one and we are separate. So the higher mind is the mind that we all share. Your physical body is a unique expression of that. And, the illusion of separation exists so that we can believe that we're separate and therefore have all of these unique experiences like free will, where our perspective of our interpretation of our environment is determining how we evolve. And so you have this unique symbiotic relationship with the part of us that is the higher mind and the part of us that is the human being. So, but that is not a power separate to us. It's not greater than us. It is us. It is us. And, once you get to the stage where you just know that because that's how it feels, not because that's what you think, but that's how it feels to engage with it and utilize it in your day-to-day life. You realize how farcical it is to pray to something up, like it's not part of you. Because and believe me, when you really practice with this, and practice is the wrong word, but once you've utilized it in your life for long enough, and it feels second nature, and you begin to understand its nature and how it responds and how it works with you symbiotically, you start expecting certain things to happen. You start even beginning to notice the difference between synchronicities. You can tell that something's happening in your life as a metaphor, and you can tell another thing's happening in your life as a real experience. And when you really begin regressing back into other experiences you've had in your life, and you begin working with your higher mind in a really conscious way, it will also conjure metaphorical stories that will lend themselves to unearthing deeper truths. And so it's like it's just a story, but you just go along with it like you're an actor playing a part in that story, because the story is evoking an emotion. And and I think there's lots of people out there that think they're the reincarnation of Cleopatra, when in truth it's, I think the higher mind is smart enough to know that the imagery or the story of the queen in that scene is what holds the power. It's the metaphor within it, but the higher mind is obviously extraordinarily intelligent, and so it knows that if it shares a vision with someone in a certain way, then it knows that they're going to respond in a way where they may think that they are a reincarnation of Cleopatra, and therefore respond from that place. But so when people aren't aware that the higher mind is a part of them, that they wield it and that they utilize it symbiotically, then that higher mind is always just seeking to manipulate the human being into realizing the truth that they're not separate at all. It's like it's an extension of their body. And I saw a brilliant I saw a brilliant video the other day someone sent me on YouTube that explains this really well. It gives you the perfect metaphor for what I mean here. And it's a dog, and the dog's chewing on a bone, and the dog's lying on the couch, and the dog's hind leg is sneaking up to scratch his ear as he's chewing on a bone, and as his back leg is sneaking up to scratch his ear, he drops the bone and he turns around. He starts growling at the leg as if to say, "This is my bone," you know. So the dog's like chowing down on this, going hard on this bone, and his hind leg's creeping up, and he's like, "Nah, you don't come near me, otherwise I'll bite you." And he actually did bite his own leg because it was coming too close to the bone. You see, he was oblivious that the leg is attached to his body. And so he's defending his bone, his territory, not realizing that that's his own leg. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. People call it a higher self. They call it God. They call it, what else do they call? I mean, there's so many names for it. The field, source. This is who and what you are. You are its leg. You are its cell. You are a cell in its body. But what's unique about a human being is that we wield that power. We're in the driver's seat. We are in the driver's seat, and that is extraordinary. It is extraordinary. Because if it was something else, if it really was separate to us, it could refuse us, and it can't. It's like if I want to move my hand, it moves. If I want to move my thumb, it moves. And if I create with, consciously working with the nature of this mind, it always brings inspiration. It always brings a vision. It always brings a thought in relation to that creation. It can never decide not to. It cannot work like that. It's not possible. You're wielding it when you're working with it consciously. So now that I've emphasized that, I'm gonna bring this all together now and bring it all back to how all these stories I've told you, they may not quite make sense to you, but they're going to now. So you've got the Catholicism, the fear of God, the wrath of God. You've got your uniqueness, which is your genius, which is the part of you that is a unique expression of one thing. And then you've got all of us, rather than expressing our uniqueness, rather than expressing our genius, the part of us that is of the higher mind, we withhold it. We don't share it. We dim our light. Why do we do this? Why do we do this? We try to remain humble. We don't want people to see our genius. We try to stay small. And the reason's simple. It's because so many people are holding in their DNA this deep fear of God. I'm doing inverted commas, but you can't see it. This deep fear of God. And they don't realize it because it could be ancestral, could just be holding it in their DNA. And so when they see the part of them that they would consider to be God, when they recognize that in someone else, it triggers the fear. It triggers the fear. And when that fear is triggered, the fear of God, the fear of the wrath of God, it is one of the most potent, it is one of the deepest and most entrenched fears in the collective of all human beings. And I've delved into this, I've sunk into it, I've explored it. This is one of the most primal fears that all human beings have. And it's like in terms of emotions, if I was to describe the nature of it, it's like granite. It is rock solid. And this is just buzzing away in the psyche of the collective of human beings. A fear of the wrath of God, the fear of a cataclysm, the fear of Armageddon, the fear of some unexpected event, the catastrophe, the wrath of God, another, a meteorite, another flood, fires rampaging the earth. It's all the wrath of God because we're so bad, because we've been sinning, because we've treated the earth like crap. It's just running the whole time. And the problem is, if you express yourself from that part of you that is that higher mind, that is the part of us that we all share, that other people mistake that for God. They see God in you. They see their version of what they believe God is in you, and they want to minimize it. They want to shut it down. They want to annihilate it. They want to eradicate it from their lives because it's imbuing them with this. It's triggering that deep-seated fear of the wrath of God. And they don't realize it. But that's what it does. And so, when you're expressing from that place, when you're sharing your genius, when you're revealing it, it makes people feel very, very small. People who feel threatened by other people's genius are only the ones who are closed off to their own. But everyone has it. Everyone has it. And so if you wonder why there's so much child abuse that goes on, and you think to yourself, how could someone harm a child? Well, children are closer to that mind than anyone else. They come in with no filter. And, we've all experienced that. Something comes out of a child's mouth, totally unfiltered. And it's so poignant and relevant and genius that you're just like, what? How? But for someone who's one of these people like that I'm talking about, who's had it entrenched in their DNA, it's in their lineage, fear of God, fear of the wrath of God, then they see this in children and they see it as a serious threat. And, it'll begin with trying to shame the child out of it, trying to guilt them out of it, try to make them feel that when they express themselves in that way, that it's wrong or shameful or dirty or whatever it may be. For me, it was always, when I was at school, I was always deeply compassionate, to the point of, I was a bit over the top where, I remember at primary school one day, we had to go for a run around the paddock, and there were prickles in the paddock, and, most of us were in bare feet. And if you were just to be walking on the paddock, you'd be getting prickles the whole time. Prickles, if you don't know what prickles are, it's a real Kiwi thing. The grass has prickles on it, and you step on them and you have to pull them out of your feet. But the key is to run with a hard foot. Rather than shying away from them, you actually run with a hard foot and you stomp as you're running, and they don't break your skin because the force is too hard. And, we all learn this after a time. So we're running around the field, running on the prickles, going for a run. And we get back, and I look back, and Daniela was there. And she was a new girl. And so she didn't know the secret of the prickles, of how to run on prickles. And she was just tiptoeing on them, and she was bawling her eyes out and screaming, and there was no teacher anywhere in sight. And I started bawling my eyes out. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle her suffering. And so I went and grabbed my shoes, charged out there and said, piggyback, jump on my back. And gave her a piggyback back to the thing and got her back on the concrete. And she was traumatized, man. She was traumatized. I could see it. Like she was just standing there, couldn't move, just bawling her eyes out, totally humiliated, totally abandoned by the teacher. None of the other kids cared. And I'm just standing there going, are you okay? What's wrong? Panicking. I'm crying. It's making the whole thing worse. But you see, I got bullied like you wouldn't believe for doing that for her. I got called gay. I got called soft. I got called a wimp. I got called a poofter. I got called a girl, the typical things. I got annihilated. I got totally annihilated for that, for doing it in the first place, and for the fact that I cried. But what's happening in that moment is I'm expressing immense levels of compassion, mercy. I had to destroy the source of her suffering. And so what's really happening is people are experiencing the part of me that is what they perceive as God. And what the truth is, it makes them feel small. And they try to minimize it so they can stay where they are. Keep praying to their God. Praying for compassion and empathy in their own lives. Meanwhile, they're snuffing it out in others. So this is what we're dealing with. This is why we hide our genius. We get bullied for it. We get shunned for it. And eventually, at some point, all we want to do is just fit in. And we'll do anything to change ourselves to try and be the same as everyone else. When in truth, the part of us that makes us genius is the part of us that no one else shares. And it's there in everyone. But largely untapped because we're too busy trying to fit in. And so that's all I really wanted to say is to just share that, because it's the saddest thing that we all have this. We're all so potent We're all just, teeming with life and brilliance and genius and creativity and passion and all of this repressed energy because of some ridiculous fear in the wrath of something that doesn't even exist other than our belief that it does. And as you all know, or anyone listening to this podcast will know, that if we believe it exists because it's our reality. We're experiencing the fear. We're experiencing the wrath. We're experiencing the natural disasters. We're experiencing the wars. We're experiencing the fires. It's the wrath of God. 9/11. Earthquakes. It's the wrath of God. Because we say it is. But my truth is, and my reality is, that it's all us and it's all you. Everything you're experiencing in your life is you. It's created by you. It's being experienced by you. And that thing that you believe has power over you, you're actually wielding that power, but you're doing it unconsciously. And the way that you're doing it unconsciously is that you are giving your presence to something and you are appreciating something without realizing that you're appreciating it. The things human beings are appreciating most right now, meaning that we are giving our most focus and attention to, are Facebook, Google, Instagram, and the other one is money. Money holds more appreciation. There is more appreciation imbued in money than there is in anything else. And what do? We try and hold it back. We try and suppress it. We try and hold on to it, not realizing that if there's something in your life that you want more of, you actually give more to it. You give more to it. And I did it again today. My cleaner, I have a cleaner that helps me clean this house. I live in a big lodge, actually. And, I have a lovely lady that cleans it once a fortnight. Gives it a big clean. And, what I came home and I just loved it. This was today. I just loved it. It felt amazing. And I thought, I was so grateful. And of course, gratitude is imbued with appreciation because I'm focusing on what I've received. Remember, appreciation is pure focus. It's observing something, gives it our unconditional presence, which gives it the energy that is contained within everything in existence. So if we focus and observe on one thing, it appreciates. And so I was just going around the house, just going, this is awesome. Absolutely love this. And I just felt within me, it just felt constrictive. I felt like what I was paying her is not, it doesn't represent how much I appreciate it. Doesn't represent how grateful I am for it. And so my desire was to appreciate it more. It's not for me to go, this is awesome, I'm getting a great bargain. She doesn't know what she's missing out on. If she knew how much I loved the work that she does, She could charge me so much more. It's not that. It's the complete opposite. It's that I want to appreciate her. That's it. That's it. I want to appreciate her. And why is this so important and so powerful? It seems so silly and subtle. It's because money is already imbued with appreciation, because someone's unconditional presence went into creating something and that they received that money for. So you can look at money as like a storehouse, like a way to store your unconditional presence and the unconditional presence of other people. If I've got a $10 note in my hand, someone else's unconditional presence into a task or some kind of job, that job received their presence and the money was exchanged for their presence and their focus on that task. So when you're holding a $20 note, you're holding someone else's unconditional presence. Now, I want that to just sink in. Just want that to sink in, because if you really get this, what you'll realize is that everything you are giving money to is appreciating. You know, if I go to the supermarket, if I go to the florist and I buy some flowers, I give someone my, let's be honest, $100. Excuse me, I give someone my $100. I'm appreciating them. Someone else's unconditional presence went into doing a job. This is before I went to the florist. And that unconditional presence they gave to that task was exchanged for that piece of paper. Now I've got that piece of paper. For whatever reason, you know, let's say I did another task, imbued my unconditional presence in completing a task, and someone exchanged that with me for that task that I completed for them. So I'm holding unconditional presence. I'm holding focus, the ability to appreciate something in my hand. Money represents your latent potential to appreciate something. Now, let's say it's a bigger sum. Let's say I've got $10,000 in my bank account, that representing my potential, my latent potential to appreciate something. And so let's say I want to design a new house, and I want an architect to do that for me. Now, can I appreciate that my vision? Can I make it bigger without some money to pay the architect? It's possible. It's possible. But the reality is that having that $10,000 means that I can make my vision bigger. I can amplify it. I can appreciate it. I exchanged this $10,000 for his unconditional presence to focus on designing a house. You see, everything is just an energetic flow and exchange. Money is just storing up appreciation, preparing it for us to imbue it into something that we want to make bigger and grow. Money is the unconditional presence that someone else has already given to providing something for someone else. And it represents the appreciation they received. And so never, if there are things in your life that you really are grateful for, that other people do for you, it could be your accountant, could be your cleaner, could be, you know, the person that, it could be a taxi driver, it could be a million different people. If there are people who do things for you that you just love and you notice you're grateful for, give them more, no matter what they're charging. Give them what makes you feel like it's the equivalent of the gratitude that you have. And it will keep growing. It will keep becoming more. That thing you give your money to will appreciate. That person will appreciate. That person will thrive. Because they're starting to feel appreciated. What happens? They thrive. They do an even better job. They feel like you're recognizing their potential. And you tap into something and they then express themselves even more freely than they were before. That may have been just for money before. Now it's for something else. Now it's a feeling that they received. So this one's kind of meandered a bit, but all I wanted to do is just say, we have to figure out, because I haven't figured it out yet. I haven't reconciled this part of myself yet, this fear of God. I haven't reconciled it yet, but we have to figure out a way to be able to express our genius and to identify and express our genius, but also to own our uniqueness, really. And, if you do that thing of looking around your life at all the people you admire and try to understand their genius, that'll give you hidden clues and hints to what yours is. And that's a great place to start. And I'll just share another episode once I've reconciled within myself this fear of the wrath of God. What's the story? How can we get into a space where we don't threaten people by expressing our uniqueness, and that it's encouraged and embraced by people, and appreciating it in others, appreciating other people's genius is definitely and certainly a way to coax it out of yourself. Okay, that's all for now for the nature of genius. Talk soon.